How's everybody doing? Why? What do you mean not available? Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Why you gotta be like that for? Don't do that. Alright. There we go. Alright. What's going on, everyone? Welcome. I hope you guys are having a fantastic morning. I really do. Can I get this to cooperate better? No? No, you don't want to. Okay. How about if I do that? That's not working. You know what? That's fine. That's fine. We'll leave it there. All right, we're doing the thing. We're live. We are live. Alright, so I hope you guys are having a good morning. It's 11:46 and this is going live, so yeah, we're doing the thing. But I wonder if they're gonna reveal what if they're gonna reveal certain games, or are they just gonna talk about the system for 10 minutes and that's it? You know, we all figured that they would do something like this for a PS5. I guess, you know, this quarantine is sponsored by PlayStation. But, you know, it's cool, I guess. It's cool. Martin, what's up, man? There are a lot of people super pumped for this, because if you're in, if you go to the actual live stream for this, there are a ton of people in there. It's crazy. It's insane. I mean, look, we're all excited for the PS5, right? All excited. I mean, unless you're excited for the Xbox, then what are you doing with yourself? But I honestly, some people don't want this, but I'm hoping the design is going to be the same as the dev kits. I actually like the design of the dev kits. Some people don't. I think it's cool because it's the Roman numeral 5 and it's a PS5, so why not, you know? Resident Evil 3 remake demo already coming. Not for me, it didn't. It's still the 18th for me. So I can't play it yet. Winter Peach, how you doing? Discord said there's going to be a Canelo. Yeah, I don't know where they're getting that from. I haven't seen anything about that. So I don't know where they're getting that from. Nobody that I follow. Oh, never mind. I just saw it. Wow. Yep, I just saw it. Yep, Canelo's coming too. Okay, that was posted just a couple minutes ago. Very nice. I guess just skip everybody until only for Canela. Oh, when you max them at break Canela, her clothes are gone. Oh, that's funny. That's so good. That's so good. Oh, that's so funny, man. I gotta hold on. Let's copy. I gotta make another video just on that. But actually, you know what? I'll hold off until we get some more info, but oh, somebody already posted it. That's so funny. Um, hoping they'll announce backwards compatibility for it. Well, they already announced that it's gonna be backwards compatible to PS4. I want backwards compatibility to PS3, PS2, PS1. You know, like why is it that the PS3 is backwards compatible to like the PS1? Unless you have the unless you have like the first model, then it's backwards compatible to PS2 and PS1. But all of them are backwards compatible to PS1. Why isn't the PS4 backwards compatible to PS1? I never understood that. Like, I can't put a PS1 game in my PS4 and play it. It doesn't work. Like, why did they have to get rid of that? I never understood that. But like, I would love for the PS5 to be my my go-to console for everything, right? So like, if I want to play my PS2 games, I can play my PS2. You know, if I want, or you know, I can play my PS2 games on my PS5. If I want to play my PS3 games, I can use my PS5 to play my PS3 games. Like, for real. I hate, like, don't get me wrong, I love having my consoles, but at the same time, I hate having all my consoles connected at all times. I hate that. Give me one console. Like, if I always said it, if they announced that PS5 was backwards compatible with all prior PlayStation systems, with the exception of like the Vita and the PSP, but if they were backwards compatible to PS4, PS3, PS2, and PS1, this thing would sell out immediately, because that's what we've been wanting. We've been wanting a PlayStation console that would play all of our games. No trophies. I don't care about trophies, to be honest with you. Like, some people are like, oh my god, I love trophies. I need trophies. I gotta play this game and get all the trophies. I don't care about the trophies. The trophies, most of the time, to me, is a waste of time. I used to play games and complete, my version of completing the game is doing all the side quests and, you know, like getting all the weapons and all that stuff. Like, whatever game I'm playing, like if it's an RPG. That was my 100% back then. Like, I didn't have to chase trophies. Most of the time, the trophies are just stupid. It's like, oh, like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, right? Where you get a trophy for shooting Mr. X's hat off. Okay. Okay. Like, to me, that's just kind of silly. You know, like beating the game in 2 hours. You know, that's a big deal for me. You know, when it comes to like Resident Evil and stuff like that. Like, why couldn't they just leave it like that? You know. That's how I see trophies. I'm not a huge fan of trophies. You care less about trophies? Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I care less about trophies. Oh, I don't have that set up on Twitch. It's the same name, Goshen's Games. Same name. So yeah, I don't have the commands and stuff set up on Twitch. I'm not good with Twitch, to be honest with you, and that's why like I don't have stuff set up, because I'm not good with it. The only games I'm completionist with are the Zelda games, which don't have a trophy system. I mean, my daughter's playing Breath of the Wild right now. I used to be like that with Ocarina of Time. That was really the only Zelda game I was a completionist with. I don't know why. I mean, it's my favorite Zelda game, but I don't know. First game I ever completed was Shadow of Colossus. That's a fun game because it's just like boss after boss after boss fight. That's why Shadow of Colossus was always a good time to play. Evolution Gamer, what's up? I don't know if I said hi to you. JK, I'm browsing through a page and I can't press on the 10th page to redirect me to this. Okay. I don't know what happened, but I'm glad that you're here. I didn't even know you were live. Well, yes, I just went live. Let's hope it's the same price as PS4. Rumors are there's going to be 2 models of the PS5. So if that happens, there'll be like a base and a pro, which again is fine. I'm okay with that. I'll buy the Pro though. You know, like that's. So if the base model will be like 400, the Pro model might be 500. If PlayStation takes a loss, you know, like rumor has it that the consoles cost to break even is like $450 for like the base one. And I can see PlayStation taking a loss. They've done that before. Like the PS4, they took a loss. You know, they took a loss because that's the best way to do it. Like you make your money back on console exclusives or timed exclusives, and that's just how it's gonna have to be. Like you just that's the better marketing, right? The better marketing is to just take that loss. I'm probably gonna buy a PS5 a year and a half after release, and you know that's smart because there's not most games in like the first 2 years. Most games in the first 2 years are usually like for both the previous gen and the current gen. We've seen that a lot with games like Persona 5 and just a lot of games in general. It isn't until maybe like the year and a half marker that we start seeing exclusives for the console. I mean, we might see a game here and there that's an exclusive for the console, but usually the first couple games are just meh anyways. We're still going to be playing the last gen, you know, or the current gen that we have now, the PS4. We're still going to be playing those games for a while because, you know, Final Fantasy 7 and Cyberpunk is going to be everywhere. So, like, you know, we're still going to be playing current gen stuff, so it's not a big deal. Any PlayStation games on PC? I've said this before. The way they should handle PlayStation games going on to other consoles, do it like timed exclusives. Like they're still PlayStation, right? So they would still make some money off of the games. So like older games, like God of War now is what, 2 years old. They could easily put God of War on PC, like what they're doing with Horizon Zero Dawn. You know, they put it on PC. It's like a 2-year-old. I have it right here. How old is this game? Hold on. I want to say it's like a 2-year-old game. 2017, so it's almost 3-year-old. Or, well, you know, we're in 2020. But so, Horizon Zero Dawn is 3 years old and finally getting on a PC port. So, you know, that's, you look at things like that. Like, after a while for old games, it makes sense. Put them on PC. You know, let other console or let people play it in another system or whatever, because you're still gonna make the money, Sony. You're still gonna make the money. Conrad, what's up? I always thought about just saving up for the next generation of consoles. Did that since PS2 and didn't have another console. You missed out on the PS4. PS4 is really good. The PS3 is whatever. Like during that generation, the PS3 and the 360. The 360 was the better console. But the PS4 was just such a good, it is such a good system. The games that they have for it is just fantastic. I may sell my PS4 to make it easier to buy the PS5 because of backwards compatibility, but I don't know. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, you know, like GameStop and stuff, they're gonna do their trade in your PS4s for extra credit, you know, towards your PS5 and stuff like that. So they're always gonna do deals like that. So if that was your option, then do it that way, I guess. Missed out on Persona 5, Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 though wasn't a PlayStation exclusive. You could play Red Dead 2 on your PC, you know. But you missed out. Here's what you missed out on: Persona 5, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Nier Automata. I'm looking at all my exclusives, right? That's what I'm looking at. We're trying to look at all my exclusives. You're gonna miss out on Final Fantasy 7 remake. Death Stranding is another one, although that's coming to PC now. Escanor, what's up? Once I see the PS5, I'm gonna go because my school set my whole year grade work. Okay. My year got to stay home today because of... Oh, yeah. No, I got you. I know what you're saying. Yeah, they extended my kids' break to April. I just... This is what I say they should do. Honestly. Oh, here we go. Okay. Let me see if I can refresh that. I don't know what happened there. There you go. You know what? While that countdown is going, I'm going to keep it muted. Last of Us, Uncharted 4. Yes, thank you. The Uncharted series. I forgot about the Uncharted series. I was saying something and I completely forgot. Oh, so what... This is what I said that they should do with the kids and all that. Just cancel school for the rest of the school year for the entire U.S. You know, just do it. Cancel school for the rest of the school year for the entire U.S. Send them on summer break early. And start school earlier. Or just, you know, just hold everybody back a year. Whatever. Like, that way everybody gets held back. And it's not like, oh, some kids got held back, some didn't. Like, right now, they sent us notices saying that we have to decide if we want our kids to be held back or not. Why is the quality so bad on this? So, yeah, we have to decide if we want our kids to be held back a year or not. Like, that's just hold everybody back. Just do it. Like, you're just causing aggravation. That's what you're doing. Tomorrow, my university is being shut down. Probably gonna see people from my class in September. Yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid. I honestly feel like this could be handled so much better, but it's not. It's alright. But yeah, Last of Us 2 is coming out in May. And oh, here's the other thing. I don't know if they're gonna postpone any games that are like gonna be releasing soon because nobody can leave their house. You know, all the places are being shut down. Like Resident Evil 3 remake releases in 2 weeks. They should just release it now. Seriously. Have I seen Dreams on PS4? Yes, I have. But yeah, they should just release it now. Honestly. All right, here we go.
Unfortunately, we had to cancel the talk that we had planned for GDC. But we do have some super exciting news about PS5. And who better to bring that to you than the one and only Mark Cerny. Without further ado, over to you, Mark.
No, I don't think Cyberpunk's going to be delayed anymore.
There will be lots of chances later on this year to look at the PlayStation 5 games. Today, I want to talk a bit about our goals for the PlayStation 5 hardware and how they influenced the development of the console.
Okay.
I think you all know I'm a big believer in console generations. Once every 5 or
please
6
say backwards
or 7
compatibility.
years, a console arrives with substantially new
please say it.
capabilities. There's a lot of learning by the game developers, hopefully not too overwhelming, and soon there's games that could never have been created before. Now, it used to be that as a console designer, you'd somehow intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for the new console, and then build it in complete secrecy. For the PlayStation
Hold on, I gotta.
consoles, that period
It's just,
lasted through
the quality is
PlayStation
crap.
3, a powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around 3 principles. The first of these is listening to the developers, which is to say that a lot of what we put into a console derives directly from the needs and aspirations of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic.
Turn it up even more?
Which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do
It's turned up
to
quite
make
a
life
bit.
easier for the game creators or help them realize their dreams, we will do. So, about once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry. I go to the various developers and publishers, sit down, and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future consoles. This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100 people at something like 24 publishers and developers. And it is incredibly valuable. By the way, the feature most requested by the developers, that was an SSD. which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required.
I
I'll be
mean, how
doing a
much are you going to
deep
talk
dive
about
into
SSDs?
SSD and surrounding systems later on in this talk. It's also key to make a generational leap while keeping the console sufficiently familiar to game developers. I think about this in terms of balancing evolution and revolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was a revolution each time with a brand new feature set. That was great in many ways, but time for the developers to get up and running got longer with each console. In the past, I've called this time to triangle. Here's what I had for those 3 consoles. To be clear, I'm not talking about time to make a game. Developers will be ambitious, and it may take them 6 years or so to realize their vision. What I'm talking about is that dead time before graphics and other aspects.
Okay,
of game
he's
development
talking
are up and
so
running
much
and
about
trying to
PS1,
minimize
2,
it.
and 3. I'm
On
waiting
the
for
other
him to
hand,
say
if we're trying
everything's
to
backwards
reduce that
compatible.
dead time to 0, that means the hardware architecture can't change at all. We're handcuffed. We need to judge for each feature what value it adds and whether it's worth
The volume's
increasing
fine, stop.
developer time needed to support it. So with PlayStation 4, we were able to strike a pretty good balance between performance and familiarity. We got required learning back to PlayStation 1 levels. With PS5, the GPU was definitely the area we felt the most tension between adding new features and keeping a familiar programming model. Ultimately, I think we've ended up with something under a month of getting up to speed. That feels like we're striking a
All right,
balance right
mods,
now.
you have
I'll
my
go into a
permission to
bit
put
more
people who
detail
say
later
volume in
today
timeout.
about our philosophy with the GPU and the specific feature set that resulted from it. It's also very important for us, as the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are
I like how they have
areas in which
fake
we can
people
innovate that
standing
provide
there.
significant value to the game creators, and through them, the players. That's why the SSD was very much on our list of directions to explore, regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly improved
Jesus,
audio,
man.
and
I
in
just want to
particular,
know, is it
3D
backwards
audio,
compatible for everything?
isn't something that came out of the developer meetings. It's much more the case that we had a dream of what might be possible 5 years from now, and then worked out a number of steps we could take to set us on that path. So here again are the 3 principles. The first
Oh my
being
God.
enabling the desires of
Just tell us
developers
that's
to
it and be
drive
done with
the hardware
this.
design. To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation. It's a game changer.
Dude,
And it was the
I'm tired of
number
hearing
one
about
ask
SSD this,
developers
SSD
were
that,
looking
like for real.
As in, we know it's probably impossible.
Give me a second.
Can you put an SSD in it? That was a discussion we were also having internally. It was clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speeds were now possible. At the same time, though, in 2015 and 2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive, and a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds. I want to focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes.
I can't believe he's still talking
depending
about
on where the data
SSD
is
stuff.
located
Like, come
on the hard
on,
drive.
dude.
Let's assume it's on the outer edge, which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds.
I
If
know
you
how
compress
hard
your
drives
data
work.
packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc.
You should really
and
see
also
the
effectively
the
boost
the
your
PlayStation
hard
chat.
drive read speed
Everyone's
by
like, shut
decompression
up
ratio.
already.
We
Boring,
support
boring,
zlib
boring.
decompression on PlayStation 4 that gets you something like 50% more data on the disc and 50% higher effective read speed. Unfortunately, though, it's highly likely that your data is scattered around in various files on the hard drive, as well as sourced from multiple locations within those files. So lots of seeks are needed at 2
Okay,
to
look.
50-ish milliseconds each. My rule of
I'm
thumb
big
is that the hard
on
drive is spending
tech stuff.
2/3
I
of
love
its time
tech stuff.
seeking,
Don't get me
and
wrong.
only a third of its time
I love
actually
tech
loading
stuff.
data.
It's a lot of fun.
Putting
I
all
like
that
talking
together,
about
a
it, but
gigabyte
I
is
don't
very
want to hear
roughly
about that right
20
now.
seconds
All
to
we've been
load
hearing
a
about
hard drive.
for the past year.
Now,
SSD,
a gigabyte
SSD,
is not much
SSD.
data. Games are using 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM on PlayStation 4, so boot times and load times can get pretty grim.
Come on,
Or to put
stop.
that differently, as a player, you wait for the game to boot, wait for the game to load, wait for the level to reload.
Listen, it's not that long of loading times right now anyways.
Called fast travel. And all of that leads to the dream.
PS5 comes with a pack of toilet paper and body wash. That is the best news ever.
Blindingly fast SSD. If we could load 5 gigabytes a second from it, what would change? Now, SSDs are completely different from hard drives. They don't have seeks as such. If you have
I'm gonna lean my chair back.
Oh,
that was down, not back.
You can read data from 1,000 different locations.
I'm gonna lean my chair back.
Pretty much at speed. As for time to load a gigabyte, this is next gen we're talking about, so memory is bigger. Instead, we should be asking how long to load 2 gigabytes. And the answer is about 1/4 of a second. I mean, that's amazing. We're talking 2 orders of magnitude, meaning very roughly 100 times faster. Which means at 5 gigabytes a second for the SSD, the potential is that the game boots in a second. There are no load screens. The game just fades down while loading a half dozen gigabytes and fades back up again. Same for a reload. You're immediately back in the action after you die. And fast travel becomes so fast it's blink and you miss it. As game creators, we go from trying to distract the player from how long fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly fast that we might even have to slow that transition down. Pretty cool, right?
No, stop.
This is not the primary reason to change from a hard drive to an SSD. The primary reason for an ultra-fast SSD is that it gives the game designer freedom. Or to put that differently, with a hard drive, the 20 seconds that it takes to load a gigabyte can sabotage the game that the developer is trying to create. I think
okay, look, please,
maybe
please, stop giving us information that we know.
We each want enough textures and models to fill memory.
This guy's getting like a hard-on for an SSD.
Elevator ride or a windy corridor where you can.
He's getting a hard-on for an SSD,
and
guys.
Then take 30 seconds or so to load the new assets. Having a 30-second elevator ride is a little extreme. More realistically, we'd probably chop the world into a number of smaller pieces and then do some calculations with sight lines and run speeds like we did for Haven City when we were making Jak 2. The game is 20 years old, but not much has changed since then. All those twisty passages are there for a reason. There's a whole subset of level design dedicated to this sort of work, but still, it's a giant distraction for a team that just wants to make their game. So when I talked about...
See, this is why they have fake people there?
Part of the reason for that
because the real people would be asleep.
Was to eliminate loads, but also part of the reason for that target was streaming. As in, what if the SSD is so fast that as the player is turning around, it's possible to load textures for everything behind the player in a split second? If you figure that it takes half...
Dude. Stop with the SSD stuff. Stop with this SSD. Like, for real. I don't care. You've talked about the SSD for the past year. The PS5 is supposed to release this fall or this winter. So why are you still talking about the SSD? Stop. Just stop. Tell us. Why don't you talk about the graphical hardware that's in the PS5? Why don't you tell us if it's backwards compatible? Stop with the SSD. Oh my god. 13 minutes in and he's still talking about SSD.
Or on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data is duplicated so many times that...
You want to talk about boring? You want to talk about boring? Look. We all know SSDs make computers and stuff like that load faster. We know that. We've known that for many, many years. That's why a lot of people have taken their PS4s and changed their hard drives and put SSDs in there because we can. You don't have to... Oh my god, look at this. He's still going on about it. He's still going on about it, man. If I want to hear about SSDs, I'd go watch Linus Tech Tips. I'd go watch Jay's 2 Cents, Gamers Nexus. Like, if I want to hear about SSD stuff, I go watch their channels, not PS5.
With the changes incorporated into them, which means no installs as you know them today. There's yet one more benefit, which is that system memory.
Now he's talking about RAM. Okay.
On PlayStation 4, game data on the hard drive feels very distant and difficult to use. By the time you realize you need a piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used. On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD is very close to being like more RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize
He's still
you
going
need
about
a piece of data,
SSD.
you can just load it from the SSD and use it. There's no need to have lots of data parked in system memory waiting to potentially be used. A different way of saying that is that most
No,
of the
you don't need a
RAM
different
is
way to say
working
it.
on the game's behalf. This is one of the reasons that 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 feels right for PlayStation 5. The presence of the SSD reduces the need for a massive intergenerational increase in size. So back to the dream of the SSD.
Oh my
Here's
God,
the 7
stop.
targets.
Stop.
Beat the game in a second. No load screens. Design freedom, meaning no twisty passages or long corridors. More game on the disk and more game on the SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that the SSD is just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of places where bottlenecks can occur in between the SSD and the game code that uses the data. You can see this on PlayStation 4. If I use an SSD with 10 times the speed of a standard hard drive, I probably see only double the load speed. In fact, for PlayStation 5, our goal was not just that the SSD itself be 100 times faster. It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every single potential bottleneck needed to be addressed. And there are a lot of them. Let's look at check-in and what happens when its overhead gets 100 times larger. Conceptually, check-in is a pretty simple process. Data is loaded into system memory from the hard drive or SSD. It's examined. A few values are tweaked to check it in, and then it's moved to its final location. At the SSD speeds we're talking about, that last part, moving the data, meaning copying it from one location to another.
We know
takes
what
roughly an
SSDs
entire
do,
next-gen
man.
CPU core. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If all the overheads get 100 times larger, that will cripple the frame rate as soon as the player moves, and that massive stream of data starts coming off the SSD. So to solve all of that, we built a lot of custom hardware, namely a custom flash controller and a number of custom units.
Come on.
The flash controller in the
New
SSD
dream game
was
every time he
designed
says
for
SSD, take a
smooth
take a
and
shot.
bottleneck-free
Dude,
operation,
I
but
would,
also with
but
limited. For
man,
example,
I got
there
my
are
kids
6
to
levels of
watch.
priority when reading from the SSD. Priority is very important. You can imagine the player heading into some new location in the world and the game requesting a few gigabytes of textures. And while those textures are being loaded, an enemy is shot and has to speak a few dying words. Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately. On one side, that flash controller connects to the actual flash dies that supply the storage. To reach our bandwidth
He's
target of
going
5 kilobytes a
into
second, we ended up
he's
with
going into
12 channels
every single minute
channels
detail
needed.
about the construction
Resulting
of
bandwidth
the
density
SSD.
is actually
Look,
5
it's not that
1/2
impressive.
gigabytes a second. With
Okay.
a 12-channel interface, the most
It's
natural
impressive
size
for
of emergence
for
an
a
SSD
console, home console,
is
yeah, but it's not that impressive
125
when you got
gigabytes. The key
NVMe's
question for
that
us
you can
was,
have in your
is
computers.
that enough?
It's not
It
that
was
impressive.
tempting
Shut
to add
up.
more, but Flash certainly doesn't come cheap, and we have a responsibility to our gaming audience to be cost-effective with regards to what we put in the console. Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at the play patterns of a broad range of gamers. We examined the specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that set of games would fit properly on the SSD. We were able to establish that the
He said
friction
SSD,
caused
take a
by
shot.
reinstalls or re-downloads would be quite low, and so we locked in on that 825 gigabyte size, while also preparing multiple strategies so that those who want more storage can add it. I'll go through the details in a moment. Back to the flash controller. On the other side, it connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4 PCIe. And inside the main custom chip is a pretty hefty unit dedicated to I/O. Before we talk about what that does, let's talk compression for a moment.
No.
PlayStation 4 used zlib as its compression format.
Stop.
We decided to use it again on PlayStation 5, but on my 2017 tour of developers, I learned about a new format called
That's
Kraken
all I
from
want.
Rad
Just
Game Tools. It's
stop.
like zlib's smarter cousin. similar types of algorithms, but about 10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on the UHD Blu-ray disc or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard. Half of the teams I talked to were either using it or getting ready to.
No, I'm not leaving the stream.
So we hustled and built a custom decompressor into the I/O unit, one capable of handling over 5 gigabytes of Kraken format input data a second. After decompression, that typically becomes 8 or 9 gigabytes, but the unit itself is capable of outputting as much as 22
Release the
gigabytes
Kraken.
a second if the data happen to compress particularly well. By the way, in terms of performance, that custom decompressor equates to 9 of our Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken stream with a conventional CPU. There's a lot more in the custom I/O unit, including a dedicated DMA controller. The game can direct exactly where it wants to send.
And you're going to go into all of that, aren't you?
This equates
Aren't
to
you?
another Zen 2 core or two in terms of its copy performance. Its primary purpose is to remove check-in as a bottleneck. There's 2 dedicated I/O coprocessors and a large RAM pool. These aren't Zen 2 cores. They're there principally to direct the variety of custom hardware around them. One of the coprocessors is dedicated to SSD I/O. This
He
lets
said it
us
again. He said
bypass
SSD. Take a
traditional
shot.
file I/O and its bottlenecks when reading from the SSD. The other is responsible for memory mapping, which I know doesn't sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers map and remap memory as part of file I/O, and this too can become a bottleneck. There are coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably the biggest coherency issue is stale data in the GPU caches. Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is
SSD, take a shot.
unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So we've implemented a gentler way of doing things, where the coherency engines inform the GPU of the overwritten address ranges, and custom scrubbers in several dozen GPU caches do pinpoint evictions of just those address ranges. The best thing is, as a game developer, when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this.
SSD,
You don't
take a
even
shot.
need to know that your data is compressed. You just indicate what data you'd like to read from your original uncompressed file and where you'd like to put it, and the whole process of loading it happens invisibly.
I'll tell you where I like to put my
and it's
foot,
very
right up
fast.
your ass.
Back to the dream. Thanks to all of that surrounding hardware, our 5.5 gigabytes a second really should translate into something like 100 times faster I/O than PS4 and allow the dream of no load screens and super fast streaming to become a reality. Having said that, expandability of our SSD is going to be quite important. Flash is costly, and you may very well want to add storage to whatever we put in the console. Now, the kind of storage you need depends on how you're going to use
Stop,
it.
please.
If you have an extensive
Please, I
PlayStation
beg
4
you.
library and you'd
I
like to
beg
take
you to
advantage
please
of backwards
stop.
compatibility to play those games on PlayStation 5,
Just
then
stop.
a large external hard drive is ideal. You can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly from there, thus saving the pricier SSD storage for your PlayStation 5 titles, or you can copy your active PlayStation 4 titles to the SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5. As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit, just like our SSD does. So they can take full advantage of the decompression,
I'm gonna go get a drink.
processors, and all the other features.
I'll be
I
back.
talked about.
Like,
Here's the catch, though.
Jesus
That
Christ.
commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed
Wake
of
me
our
up when
SSD
September
work
ends.
flawlessly
I'll be right
on
back.
the M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the PlayStation 5 SSD was faster than anything available on PC. At the time, commercial M2 drives used PCIe 3.0, and 4 lanes of that cap out at 3.5 gigabytes a second. In other words, no PCIe 3.0 drive can hit the required spec. M2 drives with PCIe 4.0 are now out in the market. We're getting our samples and seeing 4 or 5 gigabytes a second from them. By year's end, I expect there will be drives that saturate 4.0 and support 7 gigabytes a second. Having said that, we are comparing apples and oranges, though, because that commercial M2 drive will have its own architecture, its own flash controller, and so on. For example, the NVMe specification lays out a priority scheme for requests that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice, but it only has 2 true priority levels. Our drive supports 6. We can hook up a drive with only 2 priority levels, definitely, but our custom I/O unit has to arbitrate the extra priorities rather than the M2 drive's flash controller. And so the M2 drive needs a little extra speed to take care of issues arising from the different approach. That commercial drive also needs to physically fit inside of the bay we created in PlayStation 5 for M2 drives. Unlike internal hard drives, there's unfortunately no standard for the height of an M2 drive, and some M2 drives have giant heat sinks. In fact, some of them even have their own fans. Right now, we're getting M2 drive samples and benchmarking them in various ways. When games hit beta as they get ready for the PlayStation 5 launch at year-end, we'll also be doing some compatibility testing to make sure that the architecture of particular M2 drives isn't too foreign for the games to handle. Once we've done that compatibility testing, we should be able to start letting you know which drives will physically fit and which drive samples have benchmarked appropriately high in our testing. It would be great if that happened by launch, but it's likely to be a bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from us. Okay, back to our principles. Balancing evolution and revolution is the second of them. This was definitely a recurring theme with the GPU. We need new GPU features and capabilities. If we only have more performance, it's not really a new generation of console. Of course, many of these capabilities result in more performance. That's part of why a PlayStation 5 teraflop is more powerful than a PlayStation 4 teraflop. But we aren't just looking for the performance. We also need the ability to do something with the GPU that could not have been done before. And we need higher performance per watt. Every time we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed.
Good, he's talking about GPU now.
But at the same time, we
Is he going to talk about that for half an hour?
You can run PS4 games, and we have to ensure that the architecture is easy for the developers to adopt. Now, backwards compatibility is handled masterfully by AMD. They treated it as a key need throughout the design process. As our solution to adding new features without blindsiding developers, we made sure that if there were new significant features, it would be optional to use them. The GPU supports ray tracing, but you don't have to use ray tracing to make your game. The GPU supports primitive shaders, but you can release your first game on PlayStation 5 without making any use of them. Before I get
that's
into the
actually cool.
capabilities of the GPU, I'd like to make clear 2 points that can be quite confusing. First, we have a custom AMD GPU.
Hold on.
Technology. What does that mean? AMD is continuously improving and revising their tech. For RDNA 2, their goals were, roughly speaking, to reduce power consumption by re-architecting the GPU to put data close to where it's needed, to optimize the GPU for performance, and to add a new, more advanced feature set. But that feature set is malleable, which is to say that we have our own needs for PlayStation, and that can factor into what the AMD...
Hold on, he says something really cool here.
So,
The game will have
if we
performance
bring concepts
sliders.
to AMD that are felt to be widely useful, then they can be adopted into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC GPUs. If the ideas are sufficiently specific to what we're trying to accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about, then they end up being just for us. If you see a similar discrete GPU available as a PC card at roughly the same time as we release our console, that means our collaboration with AMD succeeded in producing technology useful in both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony simply incorporated the PC part into our console. This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely on teraflops as an absolute indicator of performance, and CU count should be avoided as well. In the case of CPUs, we all understand this. The PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 each have 8 CPUs, but we never think that meant the capabilities and performance are equal. It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been getting much larger over time. Adding new features means adding lots of transistors. In fact, the transistor count
No,
for
performance
PlayStation
sliders.
5
Okay,
CPU
so yes,
is
performance sliders you
62%
can
larger. than the transistor count for a
You can lower the graphics to increase the frame rates,
Second, the
or you can
PlayStation
raise up
5
the graphics,
GPU
which would
is
lower the frame
backwards
rates but give you a
compatible
better
with PlayStation
looking
4.
game.
What does that mean?
So for games
One way
like
you can achieve backwards
shooters and stuff like that, where you
compatibility
need
is
more
to put
frames per
previous
second,
consoles' chipset
you
in
can
the new
lower.
console,
Wait, whoa,
like we did with some PlayStation 3s. But that's of course
Hold on.
extremely expensive.
hold on.
A better way is to incorporate any differences in the previous console's logic into the new console's custom chips, meaning that even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro titles rely on is still available in backwards compatibility modes. One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards compatibility is in the console, it's
PS3,
in.
PS4,
It's not
PS3,
as if
PS2.
a cost down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3.
Please.
Achieving this unification of functionality took years of efforts by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis. Results are excellent, though. We recently took a look at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PlayStation 5.
Nice.
With regards to new features, as I said, our strategy was to try
I
to break
wanted
new
you to
ground,
say
but
PS3
at
and
the same
PS2 as
time
well,
not
please.
to require use of new GPU capabilities. For more than a decade, GPUs have imposed
This guy is
restrictions
not a
on
good
gamers.
hype man at all.
Software handles vertex processing, but for the most part, dedicated hardware is responsible for the triangles and other geometry that the vertices form. That means it's not possible to do even basic optimizations, such as
Let's send
aborting
this outside,
processing
please.
of a vertex if all geometry that uses it is off-screen. PlayStation 5 has a new unit called the Geometry Engine, which brings handling of triangles and other primitives under full programmatic control. As a game developer, you're
He doesn't have
free to
anything
ignore its
memorized. He's looking at the
existence and use
teleprompter.
the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were no more capable than the PS4 GPU, or you can use this new intelligence in various ways. Simple usage could be performance optimization, such as removing backfaced or off-screen vertices and triangles. More complex usage involves something called primitive shaders, which allow the game to synthesize geometry on the fly as it's being rendered. It's a brand new capability. Using primitive shaders on PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including smoothly varying
I feel like
level
he's
of
an
detail,
instructor trying to teach.
addition of
He's
procedural detail
so
to
bad
close-up
at being a hype
objects,
man, man.
and improvements of particle effects and
So
other
bad.
visual special effects. Another major new feature of our custom RDNA 2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain a new specialized unit called the intersection engine, which can calculate the intersection of rays with boxes and triangles. To use the intersection engine, first you build what is called an acceleration structure. It's data in RAM that contains.
You don't need to
all of
tell
your
us how ray tracing
There's
works.
a specific set of formats you can use.
You don't need to tell us how ray
variations
tracing
on the
works.
same BVH concept. Then, in your shader program, you use a new instruction that asks the intersection engine to check a ray against the BVH. While the intersection engine is processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersections, the shaders are free to do other work. Having said that, the ray tracing instruction is pretty memory intensive, so
I'm
it's a
sorry,
good mix
I
of
blacked out there
logic
for a second.
and code. There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines will run just fine on PlayStation 5, but it presents an opportunity for those interested.
Imagine Final Fantasy
It'll
VII
take less
remake
than a
with ray
million
tracing.
rays a second to have a big impact
Dude.
on audio. That should be enough for audio occlusion and some reverb calculations. With a bit more of the GPU invested
Matthew,
in ray
yeah, I
tracing,
know, but
it
I
should
mean,
be
come
possible to do
on.
some very nice global illumination.
Like he's going really
Having
deep
said
into
that,
the
adding ray
into the
traced
specs,
shadows and
like
reflections
really
to a
deep.
traditional graphics engine could easily take hundreds of millions of rays a second.
And I
full
understand that
ray
he's the
tracing
tech
could
guy, but you can still have a tech guy,
How far can we
and
go?
the tech
I'm
guy can
starting
still
to get
be
quite bullish. I've already
entertaining.
seen a PlayStation 5
Look at
title
Linus
that's
Tech Tips and look
successfully
at
using ray
Jay's 2
tracing-based
cents. Both
reflections in
big tech
complex
guys,
animated scenes
and they're
with only
entertaining to
modest
watch.
costs. Another set of issues for
This
the
guy's got
GPU
like a very
involves size
soothing
and
whisper kind of
frequency.
voice to
How
him.
big do we make the GPU?
That just
and what
it's
frequency
boring.
do we run it at? This is a balancing act. The chip has a cost, and there's a cost for whatever we use to supply that chip with power and to cool it. In general, I like running the GPU at higher frequency. Let me show you why. Here's two possible configurations for a GPU roughly of the level of the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a thought experiment. Don't take these configurations too seriously. If you just calculate teraflops, you get the same number. But actually, the performance is noticeably different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability of the vector ALU. That's just one part of the GPU. There are a lot of other units. And those
Is Mark
other
certain he
units
designed
all
the
run
PS4
faster when
and did the
GPU
same then?
frequency is higher.
I like the
At
calmness of it, to be honest.
33% higher frequency, rasterization goes
It's not like,
33%
okay, so
faster. Processing
I
and
might have
command
phrased that
buffer
wrong. It's not so
goes
much that there
much
needs to be like
faster.
super
The
hype or
O2
anything, but
and,
like
other
he's
caches
not
have that
entertaining
much higher
as
bandwidth,
a
and so on.
front
About
man
the only
to
downside is that system memory
explain
is
this to
33%
people.
further away in terms of cycles. But the large number of benefits more than counterbalance that. As a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats. Also,
What are
it's
teraflops?
easier
It's a
to fully
measurement
use 36
of
CUs in
power
parallel than it is to fully
capabilities
use
in
48
a
CUs.
computer system.
When triangles are small, it's much harder to fill all those CUs with useful work. So there's a lot to be said for faster, assuming you can handle the resulting power and heat issues, which frankly, we haven't always done the best job at. Part of the reason for that is, historically, our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much electrical power games will consume and how much heat will be produced as a result inside of the console. Power consumption varies a lot from game to game. When I play God of War on my PS4 Pro, I know the power consumption is high just by the fan noise. But power isn't simply about engine quality. It's about the minutia of what's being displayed and how. It's counterintuitive, but processing dense geometry typically consumes less power than processing simple
Well,
geometry.
I'll
which
tell
is,
you what also gives
I
you more
suspect,
fan
why
noise.
Horizon's
A
Max
dirty
with its
PlayStation.
low triangle count makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much. Our process on previous consoles has been to try to guess what the maximum power consumption during the entire console lifetime might be, which is to say, the worst case scene in the worst case game, and prepare a cooling solution that we think will be quiet at that power level. If we get it right, fan noise is minimal. If we get it wrong, the console will be quite loud for the higher power games, and there's even a chance that it might overheat and shut down if we misestimate power too badly.
A dirty
PlayStation 5 is
PS4 will also
especially
do all of that.
challenging because the
It will
CPU
overheat, it'll
supports
shut down.
256-bit
Make
mode
sure that you
instructions
clean your
that consume
PlayStations, guys.
A lot of power. These are great.
I've taken
here
my
and there,
PS4 apart
but
a couple
presumably
times.
only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for major 256-bit instruction usage, we need to set the CPU clock substantially lower or noticeably increase the size of the power supply and fan.
So what did you do?
So after much discussion, we decided to go with a very different direction on PlayStation 5. We built a GPU with 36 CUs. Mind you, RDNA 2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation
Please tell me you went
4.
with a larger power
So
supply.
if we compare transistor counts, 36 RDNA 2 CUs equates to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs. It is a fairly sizable GPU. Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode. We supply a generous amount of electrical power and then increase the frequency of GPU and CPU until they reach the capabilities of the system's cooling solution. It's a completely different paradigm. Rather than running at constant frequency and letting power vary based on the workload, we run at essentially constant power and let the frequency vary based on the workload. We then tackled the engineering challenge of a cost-effective and high-performance cooling solution designed for that specific power level. In some ways, it becomes a simpler problem because there are no more unknowns. There's
Mine's
no
clean
need
is
to
still
guess
making those
what
fan
power
noises that felt like
consumption
the
worst
plane's
case
gonna
is
take
going
off
to
with some
have.
games.
As for the details
Hey,
of the
look, don't
cooling
get me wrong.
solution,
There's
we're
some games
saving
that'll
them
just
for
do
our
that.
teardown. I think
Like,
you'll be quite
no, they're
happy
not
with
real
what the
people.
engineering team
There's some games that'll do that. Like, for example,
So,
Life is
how
Strange
fast
2,
can
believe it
we
or
run
not,
the GPU and CPU
pushes
with this
the
strategy? The
PS4
simplest approach would be
enough
to
where the
look at
fans are just
actual
going
temperature of
crazy.
the silicon die and throttle the frequency on that basis.
So
But that won't
they're
work. It fails
they're
to
on a
create
loop.
consistent PlayStation 5 experience. It wouldn't do to run a console slower simply because it was in a hot room. So rather than look at the actual temperature of the silicon die, we look at the activities that the GPU and CPU are
See, this
performing
part's actually
and set the
interesting.
frequencies on that basis, which makes everything deterministic and repeatable. While we're at it, we also use AMD's Smart Shift technology and send any unused power from the CPU to the GPU so it can squeeze out a few more pixels. The benefits of this strategy are quite large. Running a GPU at 2 gigahertz was looking like an unreachable target with the old fixed frequency strategy. With this new paradigm, we're able to run way over that. In fact, we have to cap the GPU frequency at 2.23 gigahertz so that
Like, why does it sound like The Witcher 3 was like that after? Was like that too after a while.
2.23 gigahertz is
Yeah,
10
it's
teraflops, and we expect the GPU to spend most of its time at or close to that frequency and performance.
It's just how some of the
headaches with
games
the old
are. Some of them really push it.
But now we can run it as high as 3.5 gigahertz.
Oh,
In fact,
nice.
it spends most of its time at that frequency. That doesn't mean all games will be running at 2.23 gigahertz and 3.5 gigahertz. When that worst case
Would you send your kids to school if
it
they have
will
a day
run
off on
at a
Friday
lower
but not
clock
Thursday?
speed, but not too
Yes.
much lower. To reduce power by 10%, it only takes a couple of percent reduction in frequency, so I'd expect any downclocking to be pretty minor. All things considered, the change to a variable frequency approach will show significant gains for PlayStation gamers. The final of our 3 principles was about finding new dreams. It's important for us on the hardware team to find new ways to expand or deepen gaming, and that's what led us to a focus on 3D audio. As players, we experience the game through the visuals, through audio, and through the feedback we receive from the controller, such as rumble or haptics. Personally, I feel a game is just dead without audio. Visuals are, of course, important, but the impact of audio is huge as well. At the same time, the audio team on a game project has to do a lot with a little. For example, on PlayStation 4, there's fierce competition for the Jaguar CPU cores. Audio typically ends up getting just a fraction of the core. That's not much of a computational resource, particularly when you consider that the visuals run at 30 or 60 frames a second.
Can we see the official design? I want to see the official design.
At almost 200 times a second.
Honestly, I want it to look
So,
like the dev
it's
kit.
been tough going making forward progress on audio with PlayStation 4, particularly when PlayStation 3 was such a beast when it came to audio. The SPUs in Cell were almost a perfect device for audio rendering. Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit.
See, I
There's
like
unfortunately
audio
nothing
stuff,
comparable
and
on PlayStation 4. Probably the most dramatic progress in the PlayStation 4 generation has been with virtual reality.
I thought he was going to talk about the new
PSVR
VR.
hardware has its own audio unit. It supports about 50 pretty decent 3D sound sources. And this provided a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience.
If
Not
you
to
ever want
oversimplify,
to
but here were
experience
our goals
like the
for
full
audio.
force of audio on PS3,
The first
go play
goal
Dead
was great
Space.
audio for everyone, not
play
just
Dead
VR
Space with a
users,
good
soundbar
headset
owners,
or
headphone
in a
users.
surround sound
That meant
system.
audio had to be part of the console.
And
it couldn't be a peripheral.
dude, the audio on the
second
PS3
goal
was
to
really
support
good.
Hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to pick and choose what sounds would get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound in the game to have dimensionality.
No, the dev
And
kit on the
finally, we
PS5
wanted
that
to
looked
really
like a
take
V. It
on
was a
the
Roman numeral
challenges
V.
of presence and locality. Now, when we say presence, we mean the feeling that you're actually there. You've entered the matrix. It's not, of course, something we thought we could perfectly achieve, but the idea was that if we stopped using just a rain sound and instead used lots of 3D audio sources for raindrops hitting the ground at all sorts of locations around you, then at some point your brain would take a leap and you'd begin to have this feeling of real presence inside the virtual world of the game. This has the capacity to affect your
Honestly,
appreciation of
the best game for
just like
audio on the
music in a
PS4,
game does.
in my
The
opinion,
concept of locality
is
simpler. It's just
Resident
your
Evil
sense
2
where the
remake,
audio is
and
coming
probably
from.
Resident Evil
To the
3
right of
remake
you,
when that comes out.
behind you,
They did such a
This
damn
can
good job with the
immerse you
audio on
further
that.
in
It was
the game,
crazy.
And it can also directly enhance the gameplay. To use Dead Space as an example.
Look, I just
know,
said it.
old
I just
school.
said it too.
You're fighting enemies in fairly dark, spooky locations. Back in the day, if you
Dead
played the
Space is
game
a
using
perfect
the TV
example of
speakers,
how
you could
good the
tell that
audio
there
was.
one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right.
I just said
But
it.
with 3D audio, with locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn and you take it out. So, how do we know where a sound is coming from in the first place? Well, all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking. Based on what direction the sound is coming from, sound waves bounce around inside the ear, there's some constructive and destructive interference, and the result is a change in volume. The phase of the sound also shifts, depending on what path the sound wave took to reach the ear canal. These volume changes and phase shifts are different for each direction and also vary depending on the frequency of the sound. Head size and head shape also impact the sound in a similar fashion. The way that the sound changes.
Right now he's talking
based
about
on
how we hear and
direction
stuff like that, like
frequency,
biology.
can be encoded in a table called the head-related transfer
Okay.
function, or HRTF. Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency. The horizontal axis is the direction, front, back, left, right, and the color gives the degree of attenuation of the sound at that frequency. The HRTF is as unique to an individual.
Like, if you
as the
stare at it long enough,
In fact,
you
you're
start to
looking
see
at mine
images
right
pop
now.
out at you.
Here's how we measure an HRTF. We've taken hundreds of people through this process. We put a microphone in the subject's left and right ear canals, and then sit the subject down in the middle of an array of 22 speakers. We then play an audio sweep from each speaker as we rotate the subject. In the course of 10 or 20 minutes, we're able to sample the HRTF at over 1,000 locations. Using an HRTF when rendering audio creates unparalleled
You're gonna
quality,
wait for
but
your
it's
PC and play,
computationally
or
expensive.
gonna launch your
The
PC and play
simplest
Rainbow
way to
Six
use
Siege.
an
Okay.
HRTF is to process a sound source to make it
Have
appear
fun
as if
with
it's coming
that.
from one of those 1,000 locations.
I just want to
we
see the
sampled.
PS5 at this point.
Unfortunately,
That's what
the
I
processing
want,
has to
honestly.
be done in frequency domain rather than time domain, so there's multiple fast Fourier transforms needed for every sound source for every audio tick. That's a lot of multiplies. This computational complexity was the determining factor for our strategy. It meant we had to bite the bullet and design and build a custom hardware unit for 3D audio. Collectively, we're referring to the hardware unit and the proprietary algorithms we run on it as Tempest 3D Audio Tech. The meaning of 3D audio and technology should be pretty obvious here. As for Tempest, I feel it really reflects our goals with audio. It suggests a certain intensity of experience and also hints at your presence within it. We're calling the hardware unit that we built the Tempest engine. It's based on AMD's GPU technology. We modified a compute unit in such a way as to make it very close to the SPUs in PlayStation 3.
Okay.
Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest engine has no caches, just like an SPU. All data access.
Want to
is
see the
via
PS5
DMA,
controller?
Just like an SPU.
PS5 controller
Our
will look just like the
target was that it
PS4
would
controller,
have more
except
power than a
it's not going to
CPU
have this
thanks to the
touchpad anymore.
parallelism that a GPU
They're getting
can
rid of
achieve,
that.
and that it would be more
They said
efficient
that
than our
it might
GPU
have like a
thanks to
little
the
screen
SPU-like
there instead.
architecture. The goal being to make possible near
I don't know.
100% utilization of the CU's vector units. Where we ended up is a unit with roughly the same SIMD power and bandwidth as all 8 Jaguar cores in the PlayStation 4 combined. If we were to use the same algorithms as PSVR, that's enough for something like 5,000 sound sources. But of course, we want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like that number of sounds. It would have been wonderful if a simpler strategy, such as using Dolby Atmos peripherals, could have achieved our goals, but we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with licensed soundbars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 32
I hate
that
sound
Atmos
bars, man.
supports. And finally, we wanted
hate
to be
'em.
able to throw an overwhelming amount of processing power at the problem, and it wasn't clear what any peripheral might have inside of it. In fact, with the Tempest engine, we've even got enough power that we can allocate some to the games, to the extent that games want to make use of convolution reverb and other algorithms that are either computationally expensive or need high bandwidth. But the primary purpose of the Tempest engine remains 3D audio. Now,
You like
3D
the
audio
touchpad? You
is
barely use a
major
touchpad.
academic research
There-
topic.
I
It's
don't- I
safe
don't
to say
remember
that
any
no
games
one in
where I
the
use a
world has all
touchpad.
of the answers. And the set of algorithms that has to be invented, tuned, or implemented to realize our vision for 3D audio is immense. For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making a sound source appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations. But for high-quality 3D game audio, we have to handle other possibilities. The sound source might not be at one of the 1,000 HRTF sample locations, so we have to blend the HRTF data from the closest locations that we have sampled. The sound source might be moving, which needs very special handling as that blend keeps changing, and that can cause
Infamous
phased
Second Son. I didn't play
artifacts in the
Infamous though.
resulting audio.
And
Or
here's the thing, like
sound
the
source might have a
the
size
games
to it,
when the
meaning it should
PS5
feel as if it's
PS4
coming
first
from
came
an
out,
area
yeah, they tried
rather
to use a
than a
touchpad for
single
most of
point.
them, but as
There's
the
also
as
whole
the
categories of approaches. For
PS4 got
example,
older and
3D
new games
audio can
came
be
out, they just
implemented
stopped
using
trying with the
individual
touchpad.
processing of 3D sound sources. But alternatively, ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics being somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer graphics. Finally,
Small
there's
question.
audio
Would I play
devices.
Doom Eternal?
The
Someone
player
gave it
might
to
be
me as a
using
gift.
headphones
Yes.
or TV speakers, or have a
If
higher-end
someone
surround
bought
sound
Doom
setup
Eternal
with
for me
6
or
more speakers,
donated money for me
all
to
of which need different
to play Doom
approaches.
Eternal,
That's a
then
lot of
yes, I would
variation.
play it on
It's
stream
nice to
because
have
somebody
the computational
paid for
resources of
the game for
Tempest
me.
engine,
I
but it's
can't afford it
clear
right now
that
because like
achieving
we're
the
on
ultimate goals with
lockdown.
3D audio is going to be a multi-year, step-by-step process. Having said that, headphone audio implementation is largely complete at this time. It was a natural place for us to start. With headphones, we control exactly what each ear hears, and therefore the algorithmic development and implementation are more straightforward. For TV speakers and stereo speakers, we're in the process of implementing virtual surround sound. The idea being that
Steam,
if you're
no.
sitting in a sweet spot in front of the TV, then the sound can be made to feel as if it's coming from any direction.
I mean, I
even
would, but
behind you. Virtual
you know me, I
surround
like
sound
physical
has a
media.
lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but it's more complex because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have
Like-
a basic implementation of virtual surround sound. up
Either
and
way,
running.
like-
we're now looking at increasing the size of that sweet spot.
If somebody
which is to
did
say,
donate it on
making
Steam,
the
yes,
area
I
you
would.
need to be in to feel
I
the
would
3D
play it on
effect
Steam, yes,
larger.
yes.
And we're also working to boost the sense of
I wouldn't turn
locality.
it down or anything like that.
Headphone audio is the current gold standard for 3D audio on PlayStation 5, but we're going to see what we can do to bring virtual
my daughter
surround
resumed
sound
classes,
to a similar level, after
they
which
extended it.
we'll start
It was
in on
supposed to
setups with
be
more speakers, such as 6
until
channel sequencing. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games
was
in
supposed to
development are
be
extensively
until
using these
April.
systems.
Or
One
I'm
of the
sorry,
game
until
engines allows
March
you to
30th,
toggle
but they
between
extended to April
conventional
15th.
PlayStation 4 style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference. 3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional stereo audio feels smashed flat by comparison. The improvement is
How long
obvious.
lockdown for? Pretty much
So,
until my
a
kids go
big
back to school.
advancement, But have I entered the matrix? Does my brain
my wife
believe
is still
I'm
working,
really there? Like I was talking about earlier when I
But
explained a
her job is
target
probably going to be
present.
closed starting next week.
Well, the answer is no. But you've
So,
probably caught on to what's missing here.
we have enough
namely
money to pay
whose
rent for like 2
HRTF
months.
was being used.
But
It wasn't mine.
or pay
It was
rent
the
and then
default HRTF.
the cars
The audio
for
team
2 months.
analyzed the hundreds that they measured
It's
and
gonna
chose
be-
the
it's
one
gonna be
they
rough.
felt was the
It's gonna be really
closest
rough.
fit to the total game playing audience.
Probably
This
going to go
shows a
massively in
piece of
debt.
the default HRTF on the left and my HRTF
it's
on
rough
the
right
right.
now.
You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details are quite different. With the default HRTF, as I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF,
Where
though,
is the
the
PlayStation
audio
5 coming
reaches
out, or
a
when?
higher level of realism, which is to say,
I
that
just
when
use to
using
pull up
headphones
maps
on
quickly
my
on games like
HRTF,
Assassin's Creed
I
Odyssey and Division
occasionally
2,
get
but they
fooled
both have
and even
secondary
think a
means to
sound
do
is
that.
coming from
Just
the
not as
real
fast.
world
Yeah,
when
see,
it's actually
that's the
coming
thing. Like,
from the game.
I always forget the touchpad is even there for
Corollary
games. To
to
be
this
honest with
is
you.
that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far from the
When
default
you get any
HRTF.
eat during the
That's
lockdown.
the
No, I mean we
red
can
dot
leave the
here, that they
house.
can toggle between
It's not like
PS4
you know,
style
oh
and
you
PS5
you
style
cannot leave
audio
your
and not
house. We
sense
can leave the
much
house.
difference.
We can like
I've had a
we can
few
go to the
people
store and stuff
describe
like that
the
and
PlayStation
and
5's
fine.
3D
When I say
audio
lockdown,
sounding
like
a
my
bit
kids don't
better
have school,
stereo audio. Presumably they're the
and
ones at the
we're
very
probably
edges
not going to
of
have
this
work and
diagram,
stuff like that.
which means what HRTF you're using is key.
That's what I
I'd
mean by
like
lockdown.
everyone to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, but obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big topics going forward as the Tempest technology matures. At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs. There's a simple test where you pick the one that gives you the best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended research topic. Maybe you'll be sending us a photo of your ear, and we'll choose a neural network
Really?
to pick the closest HRTF in our library. Maybe you'll be sending us a video of your ears and your head, and we'll make a 3D model of them and synthesize the HRTF. Maybe you'll play an audio game to tune your HRTF. We'll be subtly changing it as you play and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score, meaning that it matches you the best. This is a journey we'll all be taking together over the next few years. Ultimately, we're committing to enabling everyone to experience that next level of realism. Hopefully, I've been able to illustrate a bit about our design and decision-making process today and why PlayStation 5 has the feature set that it does. Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set.
No, that's not the fun
I'm hoping
part.
for the completely unexpected.
The fun part
Whether
is
it
just
comes from
showing us
audio,
the
ray
system.
tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
You didn't show us anything. You didn't show us anything. Come on, man. How do you not show us anything? Government not implementing anything to help people out yet. I don't know. There's like people are saying that they're gonna be sending out checks to families and stuff like that to help with rent and stuff like that. I have no idea, man. I have no idea, to be honest with you. Relay, what's up? Man, I can't believe like that was the whole thing and like oh you didn't say anything, or you didn't show us anything. It was like all spec stuff. I wanted to see the reveal. At least the reveal. And you could talk about the spec stuff about the reveal, like why you decided to go with that design and the way that the airflow works in the case and all of that stuff. Like, come on, you could have talked about all that. You showed us nothing. You showed us nothing. Dude, I can't believe like an hour and you showed us nothing as far as like the way that the system looks and all that stuff. Come on, man. Come on. All right, well, I have no idea what else to say regarding this because are you planning on buying a PlayStation 5? Can you afford that? Well, that's around November, December time. That's not now. So all of this will be done by then. And then I'll get back to work and stuff like that and we'll be fine. Man, that sucked. That was such a waste of time. That sucked so much. Well, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here for now and I guess set up another stream. I don't know. That was so disappointing. That was so disappointing. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out. You know, sticking around for this. I mean, we all kind of... We all were holding out hope they would show us what it looks like at least, right? It wasn't much of a reveal, more of a spec show. It was a spec show. I was like, I hear Road to PS5 and I'm like, oh yes, they're finally going to show us something. When will they show us what it looks like? I have no idea. You think the PlayStation 5 will be every bit as better as the PlayStation 4? You mean every bit as good? I think it's going to be better. I mean, obviously, it's going to be better as far as specs go. But like the rest of the stuff, like console exclusives and stuff, I feel like it's going to be better. I don't know why I get that feeling, but I really do. PS5, PS4 was or is fantastic for console exclusives. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like because technology is going to be better in general, then everything about it is going to be better. Even the games that will get released. So I mean, I can't wait till it happens. Because then you think about it too. The better the console games are, the better the PC games are too. So like they all go hand in hand. Because most of the time the console games are kind of downgraded, and so because of that, when they release on PC, you can't really like improve them that much. So having such a big leap in the generational gap and in the power, so they'll be able to improve the graphical capabilities of the games and stuff like that. It will show even more on the computers or like on PCs when those games get released on PC as well. So it's, you know, it's going to be, this upcoming generation is going to be fantastic. So I can't wait for it to come out. But anyways, I'm going to head out for now, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. It really means a lot to me. Really, really much do appreciate it. All of you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your day if I don't catch you. It's going to be kind of tough to figure out streaming stuff just because like I wanted to finish Life is Strange 2 last night, but we had a problem with it. And so now I'm like, I still got to finish that. And then Resident Evil 6 I want to finish, but then tonight we have Resident Evil 3 remake demo coming out, so I want to play that. So this is gonna be a little bit weird when it comes to the games, but I want to stream some Rising Steel for you guys, and it's just hard to fit that into the schedule right now. So we'll get it all figured out. And all that stuff. And Salga, as I said before, like if somebody did send me Doom Eternal on Steam, I would play it. I'm not gonna say no. I mean, I would play it. I just prefer to have physical media. That's all. Anyways, guys, thank you so much once again. I'll catch you all later. You guys have a great rest of your day. Peace out, guys.